Hello and welcome. You're watching The Full View here on SABC News Channel. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And we continue with analysis on the announcement of the results. The National Assembly, the announcement there being the ANC netting 220 seats, with the DA 84, the EFF 44, 14 for the IFP, 10 seats for Freedom Front Plus and ACDP there netting 4 seats, NFP 2 and the UDM 2, and of course the Good with Patricia de Lille also getting 2 seats. But let's talk a little bit more about what some of these mean. We joined in the studio by Mike Sluma, who's a political analyst. A very good evening to you and thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, Stephen's speaking with his political analyst about the material announcement that was made, but we'll just look at generally what the results mean. Simon Mabolo, for instance, saying that one thing that the elections did was that we came through it stronger as a country. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't agree. I think that what has happened is that all the latent problems that have been in our system have now been brought to the fore. And the challenge is going forward. The challenge is how do we address those for the next election? I mean, in just over 2 years' time, we're having another round of elections at local level. So the challenge, the question is, are we up to the task of actually ironing out all the latent defects in the system that have been thrown up by this round of elections?
And what would you say, namely, those were?
I think that it's a lot of them would relate, for example, to the whole issue of whether people were able to vote more than once, the issue of whether the ink, was staying on for as long as it was supposed to stay, and then the usual, basket of problems, polling stations opening late, polling stations running out of ballot paper, etc. But also election officials not always following on the laid down procedures, for processing voters and their ballots.
Hold the thought, Mike Sluma. Will continue with that. Now, some parties are celebrating tonight following those election results. More on the after parties. We on the line now to our reporter, Ofense Sitimo, who's in Mamelodi, Pretoria. Ofense, what is the scene like there?
Well, thank you very much, Sepiso. We are actually coming to you from Centurion Chesanyama on the south of Pretoria. The mood is quite jovial, as you can imagine. It's a double whammy whereby Sundowns won the league and ANC also won the elections. So we'll actually try and find out from the people that are here what are some of their feelings and how they are actually feeling. And here are some gentlemen here I'm going to speak to. My brother, the ANC has won the elections. How do you feel?
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great, yeah. It's well deserved, and hopefully going forward in the next term, everything will be different and we'll take the country forward.
Thank you very much. But did you vote right or did you vote wrong?
Of course, I voted right, Baba.
Okay. I don't know what right means, but thank you very much for that. Thank you so much. We're still moving around trying to interview some people. My brother, the ANC has won the election by a fraction in Gauteng. Yes.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
No, it's okay. I think the ANC, what they need to do is that they must make sure that they deliver to their mandate of the people, making sure that they take care of the people whom they voted for the ANC. That's all they need to do, so that all things can be fine. All people need service delivery. That's all that the ANC must deliver. It's good that they won 8 provinces. It's looking good for them.
Okay. Let's talk soccer. Sundowns also took the league. I don't know if you're a fan or not, but what's your reaction to that?
I'm a Kaizer Chiefs fan. That I must say. I'm glad that the noisy neighbors in Orlando, they didn't win the trophy. They are deputy champions. All that I can say is that good luck for them. Sundowns have been doing very well. There is a new top 9 now. I'm a Kaizer Chiefs and I belong to the top 9. So good luck to Sundowns. Hard luck to Orlando Pirates.
Thank you very much, my brother. Well, as you heard, the mood is still quite jovial. People are still celebrating, partying until the wee hours of the morning. But the sound is still a bit loud. I hope you don't struggle to actually hear me. I'm going to try to find one last person who can actually speak to. My brother. Sundowns won the league and ANC won the elections by a fraction, especially in Gauteng. How does that make you feel?
Sundowns winning the league is not a good thing for me because I'm a Buccaneer fan. I was in Orlando today. We played well, but we lost.
My brother. And with that, we'll cross right back to studio.
Offense, thank you very much. Offense Sitimo in Mamelodi, Pretoria. As you can see, there are celebrations underway in parts of South Africa following that announcement of the election results in Pretoria earlier on. Offense there in Centurion. And we're back to discussing the outcome of those elections and what it means generally for South Africa and its democracy. Mike Sluma is a political analyst. So earlier on you were speaking about the challenges that these elections have thrown up, and I was asking you what some of them were. And I know there's been a lot of talk about this, but did the political parties get it right in their tone, in their campaigning, just looking at the results now?
Yeah, I think that, I would answer you in a roundabout way, and say that if you look at what has happened with the DA, where part of their support has gone off to the Freedom Front Plus, and you look at the ANC, where part of its support has gone to the EFF, because those are the only parties that have shown substantial growth. So we can extrapolate and see where the voters have gone. I would say that those two parties were talking to the people that they got the people that they were talking to.
So the Freedom Front Plus obviously struck a nerve, and I'm wondering what nerve was it, especially amongst the support base that it got from. I mean, there's been a lot of talk that it would have been disgruntled DA voters, but disgruntled about governance in general or identity issues?
I think it's about material issues, self-interest issues, because two things are happening at the same time. The one is that, remember, the DA is made up of people who would have been what you would call liberal, as well as people who would have come from the old National Party, who think like that, not necessarily the individuals, but that kind of ideology, right, that still half believes in the separation of races, etc., and defending the rights of white people, etc., who do not appreciate the importance and necessity of bringing about fundamental change in the country, whether it is racial, economic change, or dealing with the issues of race and race relations. They believe that it's not necessary to go. The people who are pushing back against, for example, PEE and affirmative action, they call that reverse discrimination. So what you've got in the DA is that we've had a whole influx of black people into the DA who are starting to speak a language that traditionally would not have been spoken by your mainstream DA support base. So when someone like Mmusi Maimane talks about white privilege and black poverty, those people find it very difficult to accept. So they start gravitating away from that kind of position that's being, put forward by Mmusi Maimane, and they feel that the Freedom Front Plus is speaking more their kind of language.
But I'm looking at a union such as Solidarity, which is very much for Afrikaner nationalism, and they did not support the Freedom Front Plus.
Yeah, I think that it's shades of the right wing. It's got different shades. It's not monolithic. For example, there are people who are on the right wing, white right wing, who are happy to live in South Africa and make a stand and slant recht, as they say. And then you've got others who choose to go off and live in Orania. But it is the same. It's coming from the same kind of gut feeling that is rejecting the new dispensation in South Africa, but they are looking at they follow different paths in their resistance to that change.
40% increase in the number of parties in this year's national ballot. Is this indicative of the strengthening of the multi-party landscape in South Africa?
I'm not a great fan of this having multipartism for the sake of multipartism, because I think that a lot of those newer parties are issue-based parties. They are not national parties. Therefore, they are not making any serious contribution to what should we do, for example, with nation building, with social cohesion. They are not talking to those things, which are critical issues for our country. I mean, we're only 25 years old as a country. We need to address those things. Issues of racism, for example, issues of economic inequality, the continued exclusion of the vast majority of the population, which is black. They're talking about parochial issues. So I personally, I'm not sure that the emergence of those parties is going to help the country move forward. It looks great. It is good that it is good to the extent that we're saying anybody in South Africa can start a political party and have a platform that they are promoting. But we need to begin to think beyond just that. To say democracy is about having many parties. The whole point of having democracy and having political power, it is to use it for the benefit of the country and its people.
Just looking at what you've just said, has it served to further entrench the already existing parties, even the smaller parties?
No, I would not say so. If you look at the trend of support, for example, of the ANC, it has been going down since, I think, 2004. And this last round of elections shows that that trend has not stopped. If you look at the DA, it is stagnating to starting to decline. So the emergence of the parties has not actually, of the newer parties, has not strengthened the bigger parties at all. But what it has done...
I'm looking at the failure of some of those to actually even get seats in the National Assembly.
Yes, I mean, they fail because they are parochial parties. They are talking to sectoral interests as opposed to the broadest possible base of South Africans. One of the strongest attributes of the ANC over its history has been its ability to bring together different social and even ideological strands, so that it could. That's why they used to call it a broad church, and that's why it had the biggest support. Any party by inverse that chooses to speak to a small interest group, whether it's a racial interest group, whether it is an economic interest group, whether it's a tribal interest group or a regional interest group, can never really enjoy the kind of broad-based support that is required to garner enough voter support to be the national government.
What did these elections tell us about the relationship between the political elite and the voting public?
I think that when you look at what we call voter apathy among the youth, for example, or when you're talking about the high level of people who could vote, who are eligible, but who did not register, you can see that there's and the service delivery protests, that we've now come to call them. When you look at that, you can see that there is a disjuncture and a separation between essentially what we've got the the insiders and the outsiders. So that the elite are operating in a particular plane, and the other people are operating elsewhere. And so I think that it also has to do with the nature of leadership that has come out. I think that in South Africa, what we have is has emerged is a dictatorship of the elite. So that if you look at how we govern, the public representatives that have been elected are more active sitting in parliament in Cape Town than going around visiting their constituencies in between elections, hearing people out, dealing with the issues that affect people. For example, people who, how is it possible that you've got schools which still use pit toilets? You've got people especially, you go to a place like where you come from, in Mpumalanga, when people try to open taps to get water, they get muddy water coming out. But they've got public representatives who are sitting in Cape Town, all 400 of them, but they never come around.
The fact, though, that you had almost 10 million people who didn't vote, given the fact that there were almost 27 million people who registered to vote, but you almost had just a little over 17 million who did in fact vote. is that evidence of the fact that the voting public, as a principal agent, are showing the politicians that we have and the ability to punish and reward if you are not living up to your promises?
It is more serious than just punishment and reward. I think that it is the emergence and development of cynicism about the political system. And the danger with that is that the more you have people, when you've got the population losing interest in your formal political system, they're going to express their views by informal means. So what you're going to have in correlation to the diminishing of interest in the political processes, the formal political process, you're going to have more public protests. You know, you're going to have more tires burning. You're going to have more stay-at-homes. You're going to have more blockading of the roads. All of those kinds, the burning of clinics, etc. You know, which are not excusable, but that's how the thing is going to pan out.
And I want us to come back and talk about the mandate then that has been given to the parties and how they're going to affect that. But let's quickly go now to our reporter Faniel Schumer in Arcadia in Pretoria for more of those reactions to the results of the 2019 election. Faniel?
Thank you very much, Tsepi. So I'm coming live from Arcadia in Pretoria, and we are at one of the hangout spots where most of the young people are celebrating victory of various parties that they voted for on Wednesday. I have with me here one of the young gentlemen who went and voted. Come closer and tell us what is your reaction. The results have been announced just a short while ago.
I guess we have to re-vote again because this is not a true reflection what we have voted for. As Inja, Pretoria, we are supposed to believe Julius Malema was supposed to be in power. EFF was supposed to rule Pretoria, but because of the ANC has bought AMA votes, we don't know, people they have voted double or they have done whatever they did. This is not what we expected, because you can't start from 50 and then end up on 50 something again. And then kungabi na any movement, like any fluctuation, your votes we are there. Young Zizis are like, this is not what we expected good even a corner. Because ANC has failed us. We put DA like 5 years back. DA fuck up Pretoria. And then I guess like for now, we are not expecting the ANC will win again.
Thank you, my brother. Naledi Brown, you are also part of this celebration. What is your reaction?
The ANC has won. The people have spoken. I think what is left for us as the citizens is to support the government that is in place right now. And we are hoping that the opposition parties, the ministers and everyone involved in the process of delivering the services in the country will be able to do so, thinking about the nation more than themselves. We are hoping for the best. The elections were free, yes, because there were no fights. We didn't hear anything that has destabilized the nation. Were they fair? I don't know. I'm not sure, because there are allegations and rumors that people were voting twice, but we were free in the elections. I was in the West Africa. There, when they vote, the network gets switched off. But with us, we are free to do everything, and we are looking forward to a great 5 years of government.
Thank you, Naledi. And we still have more views from one of the people who are celebrating here. Is one of the youth here in Pretoria. And let's continue to hear what people are saying. What is your reaction after the results were announced?
Oh, well, me, I'll say I'm very, very much disappointed, because with these scandals that happened with regarding the elections, this election, they were supposed to be free and fair elections. So unfortunately, they were not free and fair. Like scandals, like there's some parties regulate votes. So to me, this is not the democracy Mandela they fought for. So yeah, that's my take with this. I'm very much disappointed.
Thank you, Tsepiso. That's how most of the youth here in Pretoria are raising their voices, are voicing their views following the announcement of the results by the IEC and the state president a short while ago. Back to the studio.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Fanny. Let's get some tweets in now. This one from Tsapi Wamufukeng saying that we're asking the question, of course, whether or not you think these elections were free and fair. And Tsapi says, Alex must not worry, 1 million houses are coming your way. And this one is from Mshengu saying the mood is a mood of free and fair elections, as we call it. 4 days, that was the Results Operations Center in Tshwane Event Center. As Kamo Ndiko saying that not entirely answering the questions whether or not the elections were free and fair. He says not entirely regarding the challenges that has come out of this election. And right, let's continue with a look at how people are reacting to the news of the election results that were announced just a few moments ago. Let's go to Lucas Multiparty, who is in Rustenburg. Lucas, tell us a little bit more about where you are.
Good evening, Tepiso and the viewers this afternoon.
All right, so let's see if Lucas can hear us this time. The ANC Provincial Task Team in the Northwest has been meeting in Rustenburg to plot the post-election way forward. 3 key issues we believe have been discussed. They include candidates for provincial premier, the fate of 6 recalled mayors, some of whom were in charge of municipalities involved in the VBS Bank scandal. Lucas Multiparty in Rustenburg. Hi, Lucas.
Good afternoon, rather good evening, Tepiso, and good evening to the viewers.
What's the latest on that meeting?
Well, we just came out of this meeting here where the officials, in fact, were locked for over 5 hours. Key to that were discussions around the legitimacy of the current PTT. Remember that, in fact, there was a PEC that was disbanded by the National Executive Committee, which at the time was led by the current Premier, Job Mokoro. But then that PTT was also disbanded to make way for the new inclusive PTT that is now being led by NEC member Obed Bapela and the Mamoloku Kubai Ngubani, who is the convener of that PTT. Understanding that the discussions were centered around the political decisions that had to be made by this new PTT. Remember that this new PTT was only installed or established only to run the elections, to put a unified ANC going into these elections. But then we understand that the PTT rather has recalled the mayor of the Madibeng in Brits and in fact has suspended her membership. Now, members aligned to former Premier Subra Mahumapelo are saying that they want clarity around the legitimacy of the current PTT. In fact, there are calls that after the sitting on Monday of the NEC, some members are saying that they will be going to court. When we tried to speak to the coordinator of this PTT, Mamaloku Kubai Ngubani, earlier, she did confirm to us that, well, Northwest, given the dynamics here, that it had problems administratively. We know that the invocation of Section 100 has been placed here in the Northwest government. And of course, when you look at some of the fightings of the ANC playing themselves out both in courts and on the streets, those are some of the discussions that were around here. But going into this meeting, importantly, was the issue of the candidates. We know that at least 3 names have to be elected and then be proposed to the NEC for the premiership of this, or rather for the premier of this province. But that we understand from Mamaloku Kubai, when we spoke to her just now, she said that decision, in fact, has been left for the NEC to discuss it itself, because they felt that many here are so divided and they could not come to a name. In fact, that matter was not really discussed, given that most of these factions that are here would want to push. Names like Abelo Matamu has been put forward. The names of Desmond Bohonus, the MEC, has been put forward. But then they decided for unity. The names will be discussed on Monday with the NEC. We understand that Job Mokgoro, the Premier, for continuity. Some are pushing for that he should continue as the Premier of this province. But other than that, issues that were also discussed here relate to the factionalism that are here. We understand that after the PTT was formed, we're talking about the PTT that include members that are aligned to former Premier, former Chairperson Supra Mahumapelo. They are saying that now a political compromise was reached. They feel that even on the list, they should be represented. Remember that even on the list, there are issues around who should be on that list. And there's a proposition that has been made that members aligned to Supra Mahumapelo must be represented 50-50 on that list.
Thanks a lot for that, Lucas. Lucas Mutibedi, our reporter in Rustenburg. We take a quick break and we'll turn looking at analysis of those election results. Don't go away.